lot of interesting things going on, like the visit to the museum, and it's a wonderful museum. And then, of course, we had to eat. So we are a little bit late. Sorry about that. But I'm sure we have plenty of time in the end, so we will be okay. Well, we have three very distinguished speakers in this session. I'd like to start with our first speaker. I have a very long CV here and very impressive, but to be effective in the use of the time, the limited time we have, I'll try to make it a little bit short. But still a lot to say and mention. Professor Tatiana Aparak-Jelusic. She's from the Department of Information Science of University of Zadar. She is the former head of department. She is recently the dean of the new PhD program they have at the department. She is the author of many or numerous publications. She supervised many diploma papers, master and PhD theses. She participates in international conferences. She also organizes or co-organizes some conferences. I think Lida is one of those, and probably most of you know. She is a member of the editorial board of many professional journals. Journal of Documentation is an example. She is the former chair of EUCLID, and she is also the former chair of ACIS European chapter. She is in the scientific committee of many international conferences. She has some research projects to manage, and she received some professional awards. I'm not going to give more details, but the platform is yours, Tatiana. And it's 20 minutes for each speaker, then 5 minutes for the questions and answers.
Thank you very much, Serap. Grazie a tutti voi che siete arrivati dopo il pranzo per ascoltare la mia presentazione. I will continue in English. Although I would love to speak in Italian as well. So the title of my presentation today is the Convergence Paradigm on the basis for the design of the new programs in the field of information sciences. And I distinctly note here plural, so information sciences, which is the official name of my department as well, and the name which we use, the title we use as name of the field in my country. So shortly, the content outline of my presentation. In the paper, I describe each part widely. So it's an introduction, theoretical background, convergence, and educational programs, new curricula at the University of Zadar, and naturally conclusion. So I'm not going to talk what I had written in the introduction, just a few lines to get you interested in the paper. So I mentioned interest for the LIM sector worldwide. I mentioned the research and the publishing in this area in recent years, stressing several conferences and several journals. Then I talked about Croatian professional approaches, and university education in the field, which has quite a long tradition. We started with education in information sciences field in 60s of the 20th century. So it's almost 50, more than 50 years, we have been dealt with information sciences education in my country and in ex-Yugoslavia, where Zagreb actually was one of the main forces for the education in the field. And I gave some data about the state of the art, about 3 universities at the moment who are offering the courses in the field. So the last part of the introduction deals with the initiative to conceive a new program at my university. In the part, which is called Theoretical Background, I discussed convergence issues as a basis for the understanding of the relationship between several LIM and other disciplines, related disciplines. Then I go to the discussion on interdisciplinary issues as desirable and possible, which might lead towards a new paradigm of information sciences in the digital society. And of course, I have literature review and background in the theory of several very known authors, such as Boy-Rivard, Marti, Zoric-Trant, and others. And in my country, I particularly stressed the views of my colleague from Zagreb, Tomislav Šola, who is preaching for the heritology as a new paradigm or a new discipline. He also calls it mnemosophy. And some of my work, which is mostly dealing with the possibility to finding out about unifying principles. The most important parts of the papers deal with the convergence and educational program, which you have already seen from the title. Everyone here probably asks why convergence is an important issue in the process of designing academic programs. In my opinion, and opinion of my colleagues when we discuss this, is that there are two reasons. So first is that although earlier, mostly bibliometric research didn't show much interest in the notion of convergence in the field of information science, some cross-disciplinary journal citation patterns were found out. And this could be seen from the articles of Chris Borgman and Rice, and Chris Borgman and Biman. Then my colleague Pehar, who actually did his PhD on convergence, and young colleague Faleta Tanackovic, and our work together. Secondly, investigation of Chris Borgman and Schement, as early as in the 1990s, which they were interested in likely common theoretical grounds for information and communication sciences. This is what they were interested in. Have shown that a small corpus of theoretical literature exists. Other authors suggest that there are different approaches for the design and performance of academic education in the wider field, such as Thibault and Lee, and there are several others as well. The results of these studies are not useful only as indicators of scientific communication patterns. In the first place, this was the goal of these research investigations when considering interdisciplinary problem or possible new research topics. And I mentioned several of these, but there are many other nowadays we could find, like semantic web and preservation and so on. Yet they concluded that there are solid ground for the design of academic program. And Thibault and Lee actually indicated this because it is seen that it is not, they noticed, and we all noticed, the growing interest in and actuality of LIM convergence, so that in my opinion, there is a pressing need for the educators in LIM professionals, to consider implications of this new reality for changes in educational requirements and programs. This is very important, and I should add to this that we in the university education, we are not supposed to follow what professionals do. We are supposed also to foresee possibilities for the new profiles, which was mentioned already in the morning session. For our approach at the University of Zadar to convergence issues in program design, the study of Borgman and Schement served actually as an intellectual challenge due to its clear distinction between different convergent models. And these models are cited here. I'm not going to discuss each of them, but this is the model of paradigmatic shift, disciplinary crossing, model of fields overlapping, and the model of common theory. And I believe that these models need to be investigated in depth, and I will conclude with what we found out in our experience. So, we also see that there are not a great number of convergence-based articles and data between disciplines they observed, at least in relation to co-citations. What we have been noticing lately is that professional literature is growing. Many projects are being presented, but we are still lacking co-citations between disciplines, and we are still lacking theoretical considerations based on some kind of common ground. Nevertheless, almost every academic department, and we heard from ISTO this morning as well, in ALISE is considering redesigning of existing programs to accommodate a higher number of common themes. This is something we notice as a common approach in many countries. So, these are directed towards traditional themes, as you might agreed, and topic that are connected to memory institutions, seeking out the best solutions for problems raised out of daily performances inside these institutions. This is the must, probably something which we need to do to offer better services. Then there are themes and topics not related to a particular institution, but to a problem which ultimately derive from the intention to assure better access to knowledge and information and cooperate in this network environment. Then there is a theoretical phenomena with the separation and interpretation of basic phenomena and its goal, as well as the search for common principles and the origins of information which would serve as a basic for our mutual understanding. And technological, naturally, which is present everywhere, trend is towards globalization, and we can investigate these on different levels, mostly conceptual, operational, and technical ones. So, coming to the new curricula at the University of Zadar, starting preparing these new programs at 2 levels, which is undergraduate and graduate, because we follow the Bologna structure, and we have also this PhD, which Serap kindly mentioned. It is it was based on an assumption that the future of information profession depends on the ability of these information and cultural heritage professionals to transcend the traditional boundaries between libraries, archives, and museums, and other we heard about this morning, in order to meet information needs in the digital age. So educational institutions, and as I mentioned earlier, are increasingly stepped up to this challenge, and my department is not an exception. So we submitted recently the new program, which received already accreditation at these two levels, and these programs are designed according to the needs of LIM community. When I say this, I must have to clarify that LIM community in my country meets, has been meeting since 1997 regularly every year. Librarians, archivists, and museologists, they come every year in November in Istria, and they discuss different common problems and different common issues, and we have after so many years working together, we agreed what these common needs would or might be. And together with the existing PhD program, these programs approach educational issues from a twofold perspective, which is, firstly, the authors intending to offer new content, new knowledge and skills represented by a number of optional and elective, sorry, not optional, I see the wrong word here, sorry, it's elective courses and core courses, and workshops that could answer the needs of the LIM sector in Croatia and in the region. And secondly, we also were aware of the fact that educational program for the sector sometimes tends to be atomized and situated in different departments at universities, which are, for example, I would give you just two examples. One is Introduction to Museology, which is often taught at the Department of History of Art, or we have I don't know, logic, which is taught at the Department of Philosophy. But we needed these courses, and we wanted to have them together with these other departments. So we thought they should be managed in a different way. Special attention, naturally, was given to issues of digitization of cultural heritage and different courses covering all these elements which are present, which are needed for the young professionals to come out from the university. And in attempt to face these challenges, we actually consider these changes or design the program according to different levels: organizational, structural, conceptual, and methodic. Yes, I know. I will be on time. So organizational changes depend mostly upon department's policy and the university strategic goals. And I describe this in detail there. Structural changes should certainly have an effect on the quality of education as closer ties to other departments, which I mentioned just now, and providing the opportunity for teaching staff to concentrate on the core subjects of the information sciences. We had to do many other things, but didn't have enough time to concentrate on what is in our research and educational interest. Then they could also be focus, conceptual changes were focus, in focus of our interest because on the basis of our research, we actually concluded that we have to create flexible and attractive program which will ensure the competence required to work in the shifting environment on the heritage sector, wide heritage sector. And secondly, we were completely independent when preparing and making decisions at this level, so university didn't interfere. So that was a very great advantage, I should say, and theoretical and methodological base also. So here are some of the expected competencies our students should gain after finishing either of these two levels, which are naturally differently put in relation to the skills and the knowledge level. So to ensure services that will optimize the availability of all materials despite origin and endurance, to offer information services as social good, and for the symbolic object of culture, to constantly improve the methods by which information is passed, to protect cultural heritage, and to be able to elaborate information with a supplementary or added value, as etc., which is, I presume everyone is aware of these things. As in our methodological approach, we has been founded on the basis of the recommendation of Bologna, which expect naturally, or at least in paper, a clear articulation of the outcomes of learning, the inclusion of students in a teamwork and problem solving, the application of theory and practice. We have very elaborated field work, and our students work in many of these institutions as a prerequisite for their diploma. So majority of these demands were successfully met earlier in relation to library studies as an older program, but we wanted to extend this. And we chose this critical collaborative inquiry as one of the most important method with dealing with students. So in conclusion, I would like to stress that it is essential that educational program at all levels, including those that see professional improvement as a lifelong task, be proposed as flexible, of wide scope, and attractive to professionals in the whole LIM sector, as this is the way in which they will yield rewards, especially when it comes to the small country, which can't afford to educate in separate programs all three professions, and ensure better skills and better knowledge. And as I mentioned at the beginning, this is my last remark, that with this Borgman and Schement model, we concluded that in Croatia, the model or permeation already points towards the migration of individual scientists, practitioners between different fields, but not to the convergence of all at the level of our entire field. Yet the model of convergence of fields points towards the existence of certain fields of research which all disciplines share, and the model of common theory finds its vantage point in the modes of practice in particular area, in which certain disciplines are independent at the academic program level, but they share the common grounds. And the last one is that common corpus of theory on the basis of which every discipline finds its specific themes of investigation is very important, and new doctoral programs is a witness to this, although we still have, at the doctoral level, we had to prove that we have each of these branches, so to say, or subdisciplines, but we are open to interdisciplinary themes and problems as a part of the PhD program and part of PhD dissertations. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Tatiana, especially for using your time so effectively, and thanks also for this very interesting presentation. Now we have 5 minutes for questions. If you have any questions. Yes, please.
Yes, hi, that was really fascinating. But unless I missed it, have you actually come to the point of creating a curriculum that you're going to prepare? Because I saw that you said that you had lots to pull from library studies, but the other disciplines were a little more difficult.
No, actually, to clarify this, thank you for the question. At the undergrad level, we have the courses which every student has to listen, such as introduction to information work, or introduction to the theory of information sciences, or the database management. Or we have cognitive science as well, because we can't do user studies without the basics in logic, cognitive science, and so on. So methodology as well. So these are, and then when we teach, I used to teach, for example, management of information of library institutions. Nowadays, I teach the management of, this is the basics, of libraries, archives, and museums. And how do I do this? I'm not expert in archive and museology, but I have my guests at the course. So I have colleagues who come from the State Archive in Zadar, or they come from the museums, different museums in Zadar. We talk about the content, and I ask them to present what I want my students to learn. So this is the way we work together. And at the graduate level, we have 3 tracks. We have actually the library track, archival track. We don't have museology still, because we don't have staff at the moment, but we plan to do as soon as we hire one. One or two, and then we have e-publishing as well. So because we think that publishing is related nowadays on the web area is related to many of these institutions, but we have common courses as well for all of them, which is information society, for example. It's methodology, which they have to work really hard in problem solving and all this. We have evaluation of information services. When we also do the similar way, if they have, if we talk about how archival people evaluate or appreciate what they have, then we will have someone from that field. Actually, we have as a partner for the archival science, because it's developing now, we have Professor Anne Gilliland from the UCLA. She has been coming for 3 years now to Zadar, and she has a course which she teaches, and she prepares the young colleagues to continue.
I won't be able to take another question, but you can catch Tatiana anytime during the breaks because we are already late with the session. So I'd like to continue with our next speaker, Carla Colombati. She is a master's student, student of DIL, actually. Probably most of you are familiar with this program. It's a digital library program. She is the assistant librarian at Paul Humanistic Library of University of Teramo, and her main research interest is learning, training, digital libraries, and social networks. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much. I'm very glad to be here, and I thank this particular section, and I thank Italians that have worked a lot, I know, so I'm very happy to be here. And the objective of this intervention is to propose and explore a possible convergent educational strategies training course, a blended learning module to be realized through the learning platform model. Ideally, a project of this kind would involve the various Italian professional associations active in the LAM sphere if we set out from the firm belief that a joint effort made in the area of education represents an effective approach when it comes to the acquisition of new skills, and also for giving fresh impetus to professional advocacy. This paper and this work was co-authored with my colleagues Elena De Carolis and Agnese Galeffi, whose justified absence I really feel. So this is the paper path, and I will start explaining the background. And it is an Italian experience, and so I will try to talk about the need of LAM's professionals and skills required, learning techniques, and some conclusion and wishes. And so the background is that in the first 3 months of 2014, the AIB, our National Library Association, offered an innovative blended learning course to Italy's communities of professional librarians. The course was titled AIB, Continuing Education and Learning, Teaching and Learning by Means of New Technologies. It was structured into 4 phases and positioned at the 6th level of the European Qualification Framework for Lifelong Learning. The goal of the course was to improve the quality of AIB continuing education by means of learning. The course educational objectives were to impart knowledge in relation to teaching methodologies and e-learning technologies that can enhance learning levels, and to develop in enrollee the ability to make choices with an awareness of tools, exercises, and content based on the educational objectives and the needs of the participants. The course was characterized by the constructivist educational approach and therefore by active and significant learning. Our proposal was inspired by this interesting experience, which saw us participating in a work group on the theme of advocacy, and which led us to devise and realize an e-learning course titled Reloaded Librarian with the slogan, Break the Stereotypes, aimed at young students. So we have chosen this class from 18 to 25 years old in order to foster orientation towards the librarian's profession. And this was also this goal because we work with young students, and we want to defend our profession. And a recent report from OCHC has made a research in USA and grouped all age groups as online learners. And the second biggest group is formed by the class from 16 to 24. So we are near with our proposal because we choose it from 18 to 25. So I would like only to show you really quickly. Okay, this is no. Okay, this is the platform in Moodle and the course that we realized, Reloaded the Librarian. And it was divided in 3 units, and we chosen the class from 18 to 25, and the slogan was break the stereotypes about librarian profession that sometimes is seen as old-fashioned and with no technological skill. And so this was the 3 units, and the first unit was held by Agnese Galeffi, and it was about the stereotypes, so some old image and films about the librarian profession, and with the new skills. The second unit was held by me, and I've tried to make a comparison between our legislative learning in Italy and comparison with UK and USA, as, because I've chosen the English language. And also I've tried to make a comparison between UK Librarian Association and in USA with our association. And finally, I've put some blog from Italian librarians that are active. And the third unit was held by Elena, and it was about new skill and a day for a working day in a library. Okay. So, why we should need, we should train LAM professional? And by now the convergence of the world of libraries, archives, and museums has been underway for a number of years. Various projects, conventions, and joint initiatives have taken place. Back in 2008, the OCC published Beyond the Silos of the LAM's collaboration among libraries and so on. And you can see, and I would like to focus on sentences that is traditionally LAM professionals are schooled, trained, and work within respective fields. When brought together, their discussion often focus on the distinction rather than the commonalities. So the LAM cooperation frequently limits itself to question in relation to organization, bureaucracy, and lobbying, based on the obvious consideration that cultural heritage institutions concern themselves with the management of collection. And there has been a work done that was done by AIB, and this work was to make a chart, an indexing of position and of skill. And I will talk something about this, because in training and education, Convergence up to the present has been placed among digital curation activities. And the role played by the digital curator is unquestionably an important, highly specialized one. But the module that we are hypothesizing and proposing in this paper is instead a foundation course aimed at young people and intended to accomplish two basic objectives. The one is orientation, and the second is training in the area of skills commonly required in the sphere of LAMs. Orientation, because we would like to demonstrate that careers in the cultural heritage context can be interesting, challenging, and the cutting edge of high technology. And training in the area of skill commonly required in the sphere of LAMs in such a way as to allow individuals to choose a context in which to learn skills relevant to the sector. And the second objective can also of interest for a professional who are inside the libraries and the archive and want to expand their horizon. So the potential themes for the course to address are here summarized, because in order to settle on the themes to address during a course intended for LAMs personnel, the various tasks performed by the professional librarian serve as a good starting point. In fact, we have used a table prepared by the AIB in the preparatory stage of creating a national index of educational and training titles and professional qualification. And there are three macro areas of professional activities: management of informational and documentary resources, supplies service, and planning and management of services. And so, for example, if we want to talk about description, what do we mean by training education in respect to description and other details of resources? For example, when the methods which have been tried and tested over time in LAM's institution can vary. Bearing in mind that coordinator should not mean identical, the proposed course would not go into much detail as regards norms, but instead examine the objective of descriptive tools in use in libraries, archives, and museums. In fact, we have said that we would like to emphasize clerical activities, not high specialized activities. And there are also other themes, for example, professional ethics, the concept of service, cultural heritage, and so on. And this second block of themes can be a conceptual framework for the first one that I've shown in the slide. And so we can have the goal to help the LAM's operator toward user services, cultural heritage as physical object, and to give an overview of the institution. So, why a LAM professional? And it is because user needs are really challenging, and the difference between LAMs do not necessarily lead to the erection of barriers. All the more so, given that the way users think and their wishes are becoming ever more fluid. And as stated by other colleagues, David Ferriero, who was formerly director of the New York Public Library, has stated that we need to focus on user behavior. And so, for this reason, personnel able to receive advice and guide users, in addition to being able to work in a cultural context without barriers, are required. And so an important aspect which should not be neglected in the educational process is, without a doubt, the development of capacity to identify the need of user above and beyond the custodial histories typical of individual disciplines. So we are facing the need to build an interdisciplinary bridge. And we are also facing the social engagement, and so the need that we pose ourselves as a link between users' need and our collection. And another point that we have treated, we would like to treat many kind of learning techniques and so on. We have focused on gamification because there was this reality and about metadata games, a joint work with British Library collaboration so that users can add tags to collection, and so they learn, and also British Library collection has more tags. So this is a report from a recent report, and in fact, at a tipping point, education, learning, and libraries is focused on the fact that the users are given the content. So I go to the learning technique. I have to summarize because I have a short time, and we have taken from the AIB learning training experience some success keys. And we have taken from knowledge management some definition statement from Dalkir studies, theories, and of course I have not the time to explain, and I am sure that you know better than me, but we have taken as success key the constructivist educational approach, the knowledge sharing, and a knowledge sharing emphasized by the community of practice that in a learning platform or environment becomes a community of practice learning. And of course, posing this discourse on a community of practice, there is also a shared glossary of vocabulary and practice. And so we would like to focus this. So I would like to emphasize knowledge sharing because it has given us a social construction of meaning. And so one of the key was represented by the community. In that case, by the librarian communities, but in our proposal, by the LAM's communities, because we should work together to build a glossary of activities and vocabulary. So I go on because I don't want to take more time, and this is the key component of the basic course that we would like to propose. There is the need to propose a sense of a professional community to the students. As we have been helped by our professional community to learn, we would like to put the students inside the community. And we would like to transform their learning in knowledge sharing, because we have seen that users generate content, and so we can share the knowledge, and we can build the knowledge. And so, as I said before, to reach professional knowledge with a shared common glossary practice and the framework of common skills and good practice. For example, there are many of activities and many of example realities, and in Italy there is a good work of Eddie Actons from the Wiki World, and they are trying to work with libraries and museums. And this is a way to also to build convergence on skills, a convergence on activities, practice, and also a glossary. And finally, this is our conclusion and our wishes, because by learning techniques which emphasize online learning, by sharing the sense of a professional and the knowledge which derives from the community, we would like to give to students trusted identities and common language, and a range of not strictly technical abilities, because we have said that it is a clerical and a basic course. And using gamification and other resources, we would like to emphasize their creative thinking, teamwork, and problem solving, so that they can guide users, they can help users, and also they can realize themselves in their chosen institution or in LAM's institution. So that's why we are looking with interest to this new Italian reality of MAB, and so we are really waiting something. There are many initiatives, but we expect more, and we are looking with interest. And finally, I would like to conclude, but because doing little research for this paper, we have focused that we are talking about convergence, but in 29, convergence was the final stage. So maybe in other part of the world, not in Italy, convergence is a reality. Here we can say that we have to work for convergence, but we know also that convergence is the final stage in the evolution of a cooperation process. And I finished, and I thank you.
Thank you very much, Carla, for this very inspiring presentation. Now we have 3 minutes for questions, if you have any. Yes, please.
Thank you, Carla. It was very interesting. How have you actually sold that to the constituency? How have you got the program, or how are you intending to get the program out to the 18 to 25-year-olds and get a decent enrolment?
Okay, I have a disability hearing, so I usually have to look to mouth to understand better, so I will ask her to tell me the question.
Can you repeat it, please, slowly?
I'm sorry.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. I'm just interested how you are going to get it out to the 18 to 25-year-olds and convince them this is a good thing to get involved with.
Okay, how we are going to convince at age?
Okay, of course, this is a challenge. And I work in a university library, and sometimes we have a student who helps librarians, 150 ore, 150 hours they help and they're paid. And when I talk with them, I see that sometimes they make their choice about universities with no knowledge. And sometimes they are really interested in our profession, okay? So we would like to interact a lot with our association in the LAM sphere and try to take from all educational approaches in online learning, using online learning, the way to convince and to make an orientation. For example, in our Italian library schools, There can be an orientation also to students to learn basic level and then to specialize. So, but the basic level to be able to work in each environment, because we can't focus or specialize too much in a particular sector. And also you have to know, and that's why we have said that we would like not to focus too much on norms, on standards, but also to give them the opportunity to know also the work in a museum or in archive. In some, for example, I did in Sapienza the degree in librarianship, and I have studied both archival and library science, but I don't know anything about museum. That's why we would like to make a joint effort from the university with the university and the association. Okay, it's a big proposal, but with the help of others, we can focus better. Okay?
Thank you very much.
Okay,
thank you. Our last speaker is Michael Crampton, and he is the Assistant Dean for Administrative Services at the University of North Carolina, at Greensboro. And Mike oversees administration of budgets, human resources, and facilitates and organizes and addresses space and remodeling issues. He's certified as a senior human resources professional and also holds a graduate certificate in adult teaching. And he is a long-time and active member of numerous professional associations such as ALA, ACRL, ALISE. And he's publishing monographs and now working currently on a monograph which is titled as Strategic Human Resource Planning for Academic Libraries. So the floor is yours.
Thank you and good afternoon. That's actually one of my motivations for this paper was the monograph I'm working on for strategic human resource planning. And so that's kind of, this presentation will be about that, kind of the administrative human resource side of looking at things. And we've worked within our university and our special collections and archives department on some of these factors in terms of converging the skills. And then we have a library school at the university, of which I'm an adjunct instructor. I teach the management course. And so we bring library school students into the special collections area and work on some internships, which I'll explain toward the end. From my research, this talk about convergence kind of started about 20 years ago with Thomas Galvin from University of Albany. And he basically wrote an opinion paper where he started talking about how we're moving from a keeper of content to be more of an instructor of access and content. And we see that in other subject matter or departments within the university as well. This move from collection management to more of an instruction and guide to help students and patrons find their way through the library. He and in discussion with all of this, talked in terms of how divergence and fragmentation of going in the other direction, in other words, can result in weak, inadequate, staffed or underfunded academic programs. So from an administrative point of view, it was felt that convergence of these things creates an opportunity to be stronger as we move forward. So obviously we have a changing environment. A lot of trends out there in terms of moving from old things to new things, from theory to application, and then from individual knowledge to shared knowledge about things. And technology can be the driver in most cases for this. But technology alone does not sustain a profession or uphold its core values and standards, mostly for incumbent employees, but also in doing their work for various organizations, but also for students coming aboard. And new professionals entering the field, they have a defined set of skills that doesn't always match up with existing circumstances. So they need to learn how to be flexible in understanding how their skills can be adapted, especially with various work processes, and learning how to take that education that they're gaining and put it into practical application. Now, some of you might be familiar with this report. It's been out for a while from the Institute of Museum and Library Studies in America. This identified a lot of the different skills between library workers and museum workers. So from this report, the focus here was to look at how these skills are being approached, by these two different groups, and how they could be put together. Successful endeavors will see staff who incorporate collaborative efforts into their work, as well as maintaining the support of administrators who are challenged to find creative solutions to financing and developing their organizations in the future. And from an administrative point of view, and we've heard references to that in other sessions, that becomes a big challenge from an administrative point of view. It was mentioned that budget's part of my responsibility, and any way that you can find a way to be more efficient about your budget, especially from the human resources point of view, makes a big difference. So in my paper, there was a lit review that was done. This is kind of detailed out more in the paper, and of course the references at the end, so I invite you to look at these other articles to gain perspective. Bordeaux, she looked at libraries as a component of cultural departments in France, and basically in France that she was indicating libraries are not figured predominantly with regard to cultural services, but they're considered cultural agents. And so that's one point of view to look at in terms of, as you converge, could that library staff be considered a cultural agent? Gibbons and McTavish, they had another point of view that they thought convergence of skills had already occurred, but became divergent as time went on with technologies and things like that. And so they're talking about pulling skills back together with technology to redesign core missions so that that technology helps us blend it all together. Davidson and Davis, they talk about organizational change, and that's important with the expansion of the information economy, recognizing how that impacts us as an organization and not just as individuals. And more commonly, the shift from prioritized efforts at production and collection to a more customized approach of broader and easier access and outreach for addressing individual needs seems to be the direction that we need to move in. Marty talks about traditional values of cultural heritage workers with the increased exposure and use of materials and resources by a broader spectrum of users. And I think that was mentioned earlier today too, in terms of how the user base is looking for new and exciting ways to use information that we have. But those users don't always have the same loyalty or disposition toward the benefactor institution. And we see that in the university that I'm at, that we have a lot of people now using special collections, using archives in undergraduate research, but they don't have that same loyalty that you would have like at a archive repository or a museum. Bob McGee expressed some similar thoughts about the future of information organization. He was president of the Canadian Library Association at the time, in recognizing that we're a global society. And he says this modern society trend towards personalization and consumer choice changes the traditional point of view between collectivism with approaches to individual consumption. So in other words, we're looking at things globally rather than individually. Christopher Barth actually has a book out in which he's talking about the convergence of skills in an information economy. So this is a list of the motivations that he felt helped drive seeking ways and actions to find ways to be more convergent. Aligning of institutional goals and objectives, which is kind of an economy of scale in a budget point of view. Changes that occur in common service models become a more blended approach. Pre-existing collaborations can be built upon and strengthened. Leadership attributes that are either supporting or missing can cause a problem, and so that needs to be a motivation to make those leadership attributes stronger. Looking at models that are set by others, the financial benefits that come from convergence, more effective organizational structures, and once again, that's something I've seen in my own university where we've been able to do some restructuring within the organization to be more efficient. Or improvement of services for stakeholders. And of course, that's always the driving point sometimes, is to make sure that your service models are the best you can for your stakeholders. So, strategic intelligence for planning and change, that's defined, or I'm defining that as purposely steering toward a winning direction. So in other words, to form a direction to move forward with convergence of goods and services is strategically looking for the right way to do it, how to win, how to do it strategically so that you're getting the best of all options. The human resource consideration within institutions of higher education also undergoing a change, and we are in America, so I'm assuming it is globally. Evans and Chang wrote that of human resource consideration, strategic planning is an advantage to be gained through proactive contribution and leadership. So in other words, when you're strategically planning your budgets or your physical facility or your collections, don't forget the human resources element. That needs to be just as strategized just as much. So there are trends out there occurring in library and information science education. And we've talked a lot about that today as well. And in my university, I've seen a lot of changes in the curriculum. We've actually, in the internship program I'm going to tell you about, we've driven some of those changes. But let's look at traditional work literature first. That's some traditional literature that's used in the programs related to museum studies or archive studies. And in the first one, museum librarianship, she focuses on the logistics of staffing and administrative hierarchy. And she details staffing in terms of structure and how it relates to planning and budgets from the point of view of a library school student. But some writings are starting to recognize shared common elements. So in the evolution of library and museum partnerships, they're discussing factors that impact both organizations. They address the issue of organizational mission, which justifies the existence in terms of education, the impact on community, and the controversial topic of entertainment and the entertainment factor within libraries. And this doesn't imply the specific skills needed related to instruction, outreach, and marketing, as well as public service attributes for keeping clients and patrons engaged. So instruction, outreach, and marketing is an important component that I know that we at my university are starting to integrate into the special collections area more closely. So professional and emotional intelligence. Marty and Tidwell explore the work in their own institutions regarding courses on museum informatics. And they describe museum informatics as the social technical interactions between people, information, and technology within museums. And their work is project-based and into course design. And this seems to have a demonstrated value of practical work experience within the education process. And remember that, because that's where I'm leading toward that model. They feel that teaching library school students a broader scope for technologies needed in cultural heritage institutions is more important than just teaching all technical skills. In other words, there's got to be a non-technical skill component to it. Those are listed as critical thinking for design, addressing multidisciplinary issues, project development and assessment, skills that can be common to the professions in both libraries, archives, and museums. So real quick, I'm going to show you a couple of charts as an example of how we're looking at those skill sets kind of competing, and this is in the article, if it's hard to read now. This is from ONET, which is a partner of the American Job Center Network. And from standard job descriptions, they pull out, and this is just the top 3 in each category. A lot more were listed. But like, for example, in this table, we're looking at knowledge, skills, and abilities. And then when you compare librarians, archivists, and curators across the board, they're very, very similar, and in many cases the same. So for example, under skills, reading comprehension is in the top 3 for all 3 categories. And in table 2, same type of thing. This is the work activities, work styles, and work values of the same group, librarians, archivists, and curators. And once again, you can see the similarities. For example, in work styles, attention to detail is present in the top 3 of those. And you just saw this. So actually, I'll move on since I'm running out of time. So practice versus theory, and that's what I was saying before with the project-based example that was given. Wife compared library archives with museums, in terms of museums converging with libraries and archives and what we're each contributing. Clearly, libraries and archives are adopting some aspects of museum practice, acquiring and managing collections of artificial objects in regalia, establishing on-site and web exposition programs, and likewise, museums are adopting library and archive techniques. In my library and institution, we've been working on an internship model, which is a little bit different. We call it Real Learning Connections. And basically what we're doing here is we're bringing in a library school student and we're doing a project-based assignment. And they work with a librarian specifically on this project. But what's also interjected in it is the faculty member for a or some of the courses that they're taking. And as we work through these projects, everyone has learning objectives. The student, the librarian they're working with, and the faculty member from which classes they're taking. And we meet throughout the year to see how we're meeting those learning objectives. And anecdotally, just to share, most librarians who, especially who've had their degree for numerous years, they learn a lot from being that conduit with the student and the faculty. And the faculty, we have ended up modifying course curriculums based on what we've learned out of these projects. A good example was a few years ago, we did one of the projects was on assessment. So we had a student working on an assessment project with one of the librarians, and she was taking the basic management class. This was before I was teaching it. And she took the feedback back that, hey, they're not talking about assessment very much in this management class. So we were able to rewrite the curriculum and make some changes so that assessment was a much more prominent piece of the basic management class. But these are some comments basically in terms of the students and the practitioners and how they're learning. Nora Bird, who's my partner, and I have written an article on this, which is in the references on this article. We refer to the work of Don Schoen, who talks about reflection. So reflection is an important part of this. And back to those learning objectives for the 3 components, that's an important piece in terms of bringing out what needs to be done to move forward. So moving forward in terms of how this affects careers, we're trying to get away from the silos of individual activities because that limits skills. It ends up having a focused set of knowledge that's not always shared. The benefits can be narrow or focused on one group, and it's not always economically stable in terms of tough budget times. We're trying to move towards shared journeys by doing an environmental scan to see, what's out there and what can we share, who can we share with. This is where the strategic planning comes into play. How can you strategically plan to converge and share resources and knowledge, as well as collections, physical space, etc. Part of this is reflecting on and recognizing and promoting the benefits of collaboration, and also touting the rewards of convergence. So some things to consider is, to us, Convergent is about a healthy organization. It should be part of a strategic purpose, woven into the strategic planning process. It is emotional. Individuals like to have their specialization. So it's important that as individuals, they are brought to the table to be part of what happens, part of the strategy, part of the collaborating. And the question of individual differentiation versus embracing the benefits of convergence has to be discussed. It has to be on the table so that people recognize that you're not trying to do something to them, but you're trying to make the organization healthy overall. So thank you. I enjoyed being here. That's my email, and if you read the article and want to discuss this further after this session program, I'd be more than happy to. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Michael, for this very interesting presentation. And now we have 4 minutes for questions. Is there any question?
I say no administrators in the room.
I don't quite have a question, but so somebody else has a question. I'll let you go first. But could you go back to the slide on that OCLC slide with the arrow on collaboration? Because it was shown twice, I thought maybe I'd mentioned something. Yeah, right there. In 2005, I did a study or did a paper on a theory of collaboration, and Ana Maria has been talking about how we need to do theory and really do some heavy thinking. This is a very old model of collaboration. And I think we keep going back to some old things without looking at the new things. And the work that was done from 2005 to 2010 on collaboration shows that, this is from empirical, this is from research, that there's a switch between cooperation and coordination. Because if you think of coordination, it's when, okay, let's do a conference. I'm going to coordinate a conference. Ana Maria knows this, she's shaking her head. And we're going to get everybody together and start working on it. That's coordinating the event. Cooperation is the next step when you say, okay, we're going to work together and do this and this and this. You don't start working together and then coordinate. Coordination is sort of a perfunctory management thing that you have to do. And it's actually not a very linear, it's sort of cyclical. You coordinate people and then you cooperate by you do this and I'll do that. And then in this research that I was doing, you begin to share thinking. It's integration of your thinking, shared planning, and shared creation of something new. And that piece is completely left out. That is collaboration. So it's the coordination, cooperation, integration of shared thinking, shared planning, shared creation of something new, which ends up being collaboration. I think if we don't clarify even these little pieces along the way, we're using these old models, all these words like collaboration is used ubiquitously in all our discussions today without some clear meaning. What does it mean? It means that you've got to do this, and then you sit down and you integrate museum, archives, libraries, and you come up with something new. That shared thinking results in that synergy that comes up with something new. And until we get to that point where we fully understand what collaboration means, I don't think that we're going to be moving forward to convergence very rapidly. Anyway.
I think some of those are good points because, I mean, this is a work in progress. I mean, that's kind of why we're having the conference, right? To have the conversation and to start thinking, you know, in terms of where are we going now? Because now keeps changing. So.
Well, I think the point that I was trying to make is that we have this, I guess the point I'm trying to make is this is 2014. That was written in 2005, and until we start, we can't move forward until we can't keep going backwards to old stuff. This is like a 1980, it's a very old model. And so we need to be, if we're going to be on top of it to move forward, we have to be moving with the, and this is not yours, it's no criticism of your presentation or what your work is. It's that this is an OCLC. It was used in 2 presentations today because that's a very well-known document. And yet I think it's using an old model that it's hard to move forward when you're using old models.
Understood.
Well, thank you very much. I think we can continue during the coffee break. I think you all need coffee now. I'd like to thank the organizers once again and all our speakers, distinguished speakers, for their participation, and the audience as well. Thank you very much.